3 years. And more importantly than that, she is my friend and Dharma sister. So today, her talk will be on mindfulness and the productivity culture. I was going to say trap, but I'm editorializing.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Okay, so we're all set in terms of our technology and whatnot? Okay.
Are we recording? We're recording.
Okay, excellent. All right. So I just wanted to start with a little bit of an introduction. So my introduction into mindfulness, I started in 2010, did my first meditation class, sort of joined my first Sangha at that time, and I had some different adventures around the world and around the country. I came to ZLMC since 2024, and I, in 2025, became a mindfulness and meditation teacher. I have my certificate and everything like that, so at least that's, and I also gave my first Dharma talk about a year ago. So I've been really inspired by the talks at this Sangha and the openness of the community here to, start doing these talks and sharing some of the things from my experiences. So, this is just my experience as a practitioner. I want to go through just very briefly, some of my previous training in a professional setting, because I think it'll give you a sense of how I've experienced productivity culture. So I grew up in Cincinnati, and I went to Loyola Chicago. That's when I first came to Chicago, and that was my undergrad. And I did my master's degree at University of Illinois at Chicago in media and communication. And then I got my PhD from Northwestern in 2012 in the Media Technology and Society program. I was a full-time professor for 11 years. I started off at Erasmus University in Rotterdam in the Netherlands for 3 years, and then I came to Washington, D.C. I was at American University for 8 years. And when I came back to Chicago, I co-founded an organization called the Behavioral Research and Innovation Center, which we called RIC. And that's a nonprofit where we create software for social science data collection. And I've been a mom since 2013 as well. So, but I have a lot of experience with what I'm calling productivity culture. So I think this is something we're all familiar with, but I wanted to start off with a couple of stories about my experience of it, and then I might ask you for some of yours as well. So when I first started experiencing this, it was really falling in love with a group of people and a profession. So this was 20 years ago when I started my master's degree at UIC. I felt like I really found my people, I found my profession, I found, my calling in a lot of ways, right? So at that time, we were told that it was important to appreciate the smell of the books. It should take 15 minutes to read an academic journal article. We should do this with our feet on the floor, not lying in bed. We should set a timer. We should take notes in a certain way. We're expected to read and discuss 3 difficult academic books a week, roughly. Our papers will come back bloody with red ink, and we will appreciate the effort of the professor who has done us the favor of showing us how to improve our writing. Right? And I 100% accepted this challenge. It was amazing. I loved it. I was a research assistant. My supervisor, the professor, had a heart attack in his office. And he went to the hospital. He survived. And the next day, roughly 1 or 2 days later, he emailed me from the hospital about work. Right? And I emailed back and I said, what? I asked somebody, isn't he in the hospital? And it's like, he just likes to, you know, keep working. It's like, okay, that's great. And I remember when it first dawned on me that I might be taking this too far. I was in CVS picking out shampoo, and I thought, oh, shampoo and conditioner in one. This will save so much time. And then I thought, oh, maybe this is too much. So, but I did buy it. So these kinds of stories were very common. I remember a colleague once told me a story. He was in grad school, and a fire alarm went off in the building that they were in. It was roughly like 8 p.m. or something like that. So it was dark out. He evacuated the building, but he looked up and he saw a light in the building and saw his supervisor in her office typing away right through the alarm. Right? So, you know, everyday conversations with our colleagues could seem like a competition to out-busy each other. Right? Or an admiration of superhuman productivity. So, you know, we admired the woman who worked well into her 80s, right? Which, you know, if that's what she wants to do, that's great, but, you know. So just back in December, I was in a breakout room in an academic conference, an online conference. And this was like a pre-holiday type of event. And the topic for the breakout group was, what are you going to do over the Christmas break? They were trying to keep it light, I think, but the first guy came out and talked about how he's going to 5 conferences and writing a paper, and usually he takes the whole day of Christmas off. Sometimes part of the next day too, not going crazy or anything. And then right after that, a master's student comes in, talks about his break, and mimics the exact same kind of thing, right? Saying how much work he's doing over the break. So you see how it perpetuates itself. So, yeah. So my experience was with this academic productivity culture, but there's a lot of forms of this. You know, one that comes to mind is like Silicon Valley or Wall Street financial firms, entrepreneurship, even beauty and like looks-maxing is like a whole productivity culture. Everywhere you look, you can find someone who's doing a morning routine that starts at 4 a.m. with like, you know, how they're maximizing their day, right? So I'm wondering, just to get a sense of the experience in the room, if anybody has any experiences that they might want to share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to change the batteries now while I'm
Okay.
handing this off.
I'm not going to talk about myself. I easily could, but I'm going to talk about my old department head. This is academic. She had cancer, and she was having a terrible time. She couldn't control her bowels or her bladder at work. She was having accidents all over and still maintaining that she was fine to work and trying to write papers, almost until the time she died.
Right.
It's sad.
Yeah, I worked construction, and I remember a guy showed up for work late one day, about a half hour, and I said, "Is everything okay?" He said, "Everything is fine. My dad passed away, but I'll be able to work all day."
Wow.
I'm really glad I did my master's at UIC in English. We had a different version of productivity, but it wasn't the same as yours. We had it in the same reading list, but that was okay with me because.
Yeah. No, this was all okay with me too. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, I really loved it.
But
yeah.
I will never forget the day. I taught at Triton College, and I would always assign things to do over, say, Christmas break. And then one day it occurred to me, wait, probably most of my students, if they're not immigrants themselves, are children of immigrants. And they're all going to visit their families wherever their families are, in Mexico or Pakistan or wherever. Or conversely, maybe they're staying at home in the neighborhood and their holidays would look quite different. Some of them were afraid to go outside too much, actually. One day it occurred to me, I don't have to assign stuff over Christmas. I don't have to do it. They've got enough in their lives.
Right.
And so I stopped. I don't know what my superiors thought of that, but it was a very liberating moment, and I think my students were happier. And I don't know if they, did they learn to be more productive? It was a revelation.
Hi, it's a great topic. I'm just thinking about when you said waking up at 4 in the morning to get stuff done, and I was just thinking, just kind of keeping it real for me, this list of things to do, like the pressure that I put on myself when I wake up to what I have to get done that day, and so much of it I've done to myself. It's not even the have-tos. It's just this feeling like I have to get stuff done to be able to finish the day feeling like I had some purpose, or I was successful, or I didn't waste the day. So just that right there is a good thing to just keep thinking about when we talk. So.
In undergrad, we would call that conversation you had with your peers in your master's, we would call it Suffering Olympics. You realize about 10 minutes in that we were all trying to one up each other, that we're suffering the most. and the reason we're doing it, we soon realized, was because we were trying to prove that I'm a good person. I'm suffering because I'm driving and I'm pushing myself, and that means I'm good, and that means I'm safe.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to say it. But yeah, in my prior profession, when I worked in on film sets, we would frequently have consecutive days that would be 14 to 16-hour days, and we would drive heavy machinery like trucks and all kinds of stuff throughout all of that. People I know around me, I would watch them and they'd be popping Adderall to stay awake, because there would be a real sincere fear when we would get off about driving home, because the fatality rate would be pretty high for film set workers, because they'd be so tired they crash their car or else people driving. But one of my friends was driving a truck back and didn't find out until after he drove several miles that the side door was open, because he was so tired that he didn't think to check. And luckily nothing fell out. But stuff like that happens all the time.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. This is just rampant. We see it in others, I think maybe clearly. I think it takes some time to see it in ourselves. I think, for me, it was a process of enculturating myself into, seeing how other people were acting and trying to match it, do the same, do more, all of that sort of thing. So I think, when I take a step back, I see this as internalized late-stage capitalism, right? Because we're all our value is in our output, right? It's not in our intrinsic nature, right? It's what did you do today, whatever profession or whatever that happens to be, right? So I think of this, particularly the internalization, as so there are sort of two main models of dystopia. There's the Orwellian style, so that's the 1984, censorship type of top-down type of system, versus the Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where it was not, we didn't have to censor things because you didn't want to read them, right? You didn't have to burn the books because you don't desire, you sort of self-medicate and want to be controlled, right? So control can happen through pain and through pleasure, right? There's a lot of pleasure in that busyness, in that, checking off the list, in the getting things done. And, but it's a temporary pleasure because there's always the next thing, right? I mean, even just this week I was working on, a pitch for my organization, and it went super well. I was really happy with it, and immediately I'm like, oh no, there's like so much more work to do. This is gonna cause, a great amount of effort, right? Immediately. So it's like I was happy for 0 seconds. Really. And I just started thinking about like, oh my God, now what? So yeah, it feels like a drug, right? There's a certain rush that you get when you do all the things and accomplish things, but I have very much been in the live to work rather than the work to live camp, although I've been sort of trying to to make adjustments to that for sure. But what I want to talk about a little bit is, how does mindfulness fit into this culture? It's so pervasive, and when we westernize and secularize mindfulness, it's within this context, right? And so a lot of these secular programs and scientific research focus on the outcomes of mindfulness, right? You're doing it for a purpose, there's an end goal, you are, reducing certain symptoms, right? So one of the earliest sort of adaptations has been mindfulness-based stress reduction, a very popular program with an outcome of reducing stress, right? If it didn't do that, it would not be considered successful, right? And that, I'm not saying there's a problem with this, but I'm saying it fits within this overall, culture of outputs, right? So there was an article in the British Medical Bulletin in 2021 that was a review of different studies about mindfulness. So it can treat depression, anxiety, stress, insomnia, addiction, psychosis, pain, hypertension, weight control, cancer-related symptoms, and pro-social behaviors. So that's a lot of outcomes, and these are great outcomes, right? But you can see how it's fitting into this culture of outcomes, right? And we can sort of see it as a means to an end. So outside of the sort of medical context where you often see it, there's also corporate mindfulness, which I think is a little easier to be skeptical of. But there was a sociology professor who interviewed folks who do these corporate mindfulness programs, and also the organizations where folks at the organizations where they did these programs. And so this is Jamie Koussinakis. That's my best attempt at that name. So Koussinakis fears that mindfulness is all too often becoming a Band-Aid that helps sustain overburdened employees on an endless quest for more productivity. So, meditation instructors secularize and justify mindfulness as aiding health and performance in a cost-effective manner that serves the bottom line, right? That's how you sell your, mindfulness intervention to a business. So employees reported that mindfulness was seen as marginal to core missions and workplace expectations. Even though some programs benefit highly stressed out workers, they struggle to bring the lessons they learned from meditation into a competitive work culture beyond the meditation groups, right? So there are limits to this. This can all make it seem like meditation is another thing to check off your to-do list, right? Something else to accomplish with concrete outcomes. I think you would be forgiven for seeing it as a productivity hack in some cases, right? I think some people come to it and see it that way. And article after article that says that you need to let go of this instrumental perspective on meditation slips in at the end, but actually, after you let it go, it totally works. Right? You'll get there, you just have to let go of thinking that you'll get there, and then it's going to totally work. That's like the main message of a lot of things. I'm like, this is not helping me let it go. It makes me like, oh, but if I could only let it go, it's really going to work. Right? So, so it's been an interesting process. So, just to give an example of a really good advice for beginning mindfulness practices. So this is from the Insight Meditation Center, and just a partial read of this advice is, for this week, I'd like to suggest that you pick 2 projects to work with. Pick a sample daily activity that takes several minutes, e.g. brushing your teeth or unloading the dishwasher. Make it simple, a light mindfulness activity. Notice your posture, your mood, whether your mind is reacting to the activity, how your breathing is. And number 2, pick something that happens regularly in your daily life and use it as a mindfulness spell. For example, closing a window on a computer or opening doors, right? So this is great advice, but I would forgive you for thinking this was a self-improvement project, right? A lot of these things have to-dos that are associated with them that seem like they add to our already overburdened list. Even the concept of the path, right? The path towards enlightenment. If there's a path, there's a forward motion, there's accomplishments. I remember I was listening to a podcast about meditation, and someone was saying, you're really a beginner and haven't experienced much mindfulness if you haven't cried during meditation. And I was like, damn, I need to accomplish that. I did, I have now, yay. So I win. One mindfulness. It's really great.
You check that one off.
Yes, check. Check. So, the question is can we use mindfulness to disrupt this productivity culture, right? Is there a way? So, is there a way to push back on this? So I, remember one of the talks, it was probably almost 2 years ago, that Chris did a talk that was about meditation is not a test, right? I think that's a good one. Go back and check it out on YouTube. It's a refuge, right? And you can really feel that it lands, right? It's a refuge. And in a way, it can push against productivity culture because you are literally doing nothing, right? Just the posture of it, the way that you approach it. So just to provide a definition of mindfulness, it's an intentional, embodied awareness of the present moment with no judgment. So I think the embodied part there is really important because a lot of what productivity culture does is about disembodiment, right? We can overcome our bodily limitations of, cancer or, our sleep cycle, wanting to sleep more, or especially sleep seems to be something to conquer a lot of times in our culture, right? But when we have an embodied awareness and can connect to our breathing, we can have a different understanding of our bodies, not as something to conquer, but as something that can really inform us, right? Somewhere where there's wisdom and knowledge to be gained, which I think is very something that can disrupt this, right? Another aspect of just the definition is judgment, right? Without judgment, I think when I think of this productivity culture, it's all just a cascade of judgment of yourself often at all times for not producing enough, and having any time where we can focus on a non-judging attitude can push against this, and we can at least have that little gap between our thoughts and ourselves, right? And understanding that we are not our thoughts, and that our thought that we are not enough, that we haven't accomplished enough, that we need to do more, we can see that thought and hold that thought and understand that it's part of this larger culture and system that we've all experienced, right? We can even have tenderness towards that thought and think, okay, I need to, hold this, see it, and not judge it either, even though it has this judgment about it. So, in a certain way, mindfulness really pushes against this idea of constant busyness, constant accomplishment. So there was an article by Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was talking about the teachings of Master Linji, who was the person who was talked about in the founding of the Rinzai line of Zen, which is a very radical perspective on the teachings and the utility of the teachings, and sort of letting go of the path, So what Thich Nhat Hanh was describing was this idea of the busyness-less person, which I think of as the idea that really pushes against this productivity culture. If you sort of revere the busy-less-ness person, that is a way to really push back against this productivity culture. So this is a person who has nothing to do and nowhere to go. Right? So Thich Nhat Hanh said, many of us have spent our whole lives learning, questioning, and searching. But even on the path of enlightenment, if all we do is study, we're wasting our time and that of our teacher. This doesn't mean we shouldn't study. Study and practice help each other. But what's important is not the goal we're seeking, even if that goal is enlightenment, but living each moment of our daily life truly and fully. So, another part of that, he says, when we've accumulated so much knowledge inside, we don't have the capacity to digest it. It's like when we eat too much food. We can't digest it, and we become constipated. When we don't understand what we've learned and can't apply it to our practice in our daily life, our knowledge can block our bodies and our minds.
Hey, Ericka.
Yes.
It's interesting because Jimmy triggered a memory for me, but back in college, freshman year, it was this, pulled an all-nighter. I did 2 in a row. I tried it once, okay? And what I found, and it didn't work, but by the end of college, I had found my own Sangha, but not a Buddhist Sangha, but it was the crew. Mm-hmm. And we all promised each other no all-nighters, and we were all going to work out during finals. And what happened was, none of our grades went down. Mm-hmm. They all actually kind of inched up. by taking care of ourselves. But for me, the joke about it is the late great Mitch Hedberg, and he goes, "I couldn't sleep for 3 days, man, because that'd be too long." And turning it on its head, the idea of the all-nighter is no. My goal is to sleep for 3 days in a row. But it just kind of plays with that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. That sounds like a really good crew. And that's, something that I think we're all trying to find. And you can notice when your crew is toxic. It's helpful to notice that, right? And to find something closer to what Ken's talking about. So, to just read a little bit more from that article. We make ourselves busy in the hopes of having happiness in the future. In the sutra, Knowing the Better Way to Live Alone, the Buddha said clearly, don't get caught in the past because the past is gone. Don't get upset about the future because the future is not yet here. There's only one moment for you to be alive, and that is the present moment. Go back to the present moment and live this moment deeply, and you'll be free. So, and that's sort of the basics of mindfulness, but I think it always comes back to the basics. So, another question that I had for you is there a way for you to embrace, or at least consider, the ideal of the busy-less-ness person? Anybody have any ideas about that one? I think Ken had a good idea. That was, you answered before I asked.
I'll jump back in for a second. As I've been trying to get my practice into my work, now that my work is down to basically 2 to 3 years with the option of semi-retirement at any point that takes the pressure off, I have found myself re-engaging with people that I used to work with who now want to work with me again because I never seem busy and I'm less crazed than I used to be. And I'm just kind of noting that as it happens. You go, okay, well, and that reinforcement is helpful for me. But it's something I also realized that I couldn't do in my 20s and 30s because I was caught up in the, in the capitalist myth, the mythology of capitalism, and now I'm not, which, by the way, is the same age as most of Shakyamuni Buddha's initial acolytes were homesteaders who had a successful business, gave it away, moved off, and then had a next step for purpose in their lives. I'm heading back here to Chris.
Wow, Ericka, this is just really hitting home. This talk, thank you. And your question feels to me like a koan. Almost like there's not a way to answer it that's not embodied. And that I'll know it when I feel it, rather than being able to sort of describe it in the moment. But it's a really good question to ponder.
It made me think about, you're talking about Thich Nhat Hanh, sorry. And when somewhere I read, he said, when I'm talking about wash dishes, just wash dishes, or chop wood, carry water, that thing, he says, that means just wash the dishes. You have no further goal than just washing the dishes. And that really hit home. And that is exactly your question, I think, dealing with exactly your question about busyness and not being busyness.
Maybe one way I'm thinking about is this absence of that analyzer or that voiceover. Maybe that's another way. If that's not there, probably that's the busy-less-ness. I don't know.
Yeah, I always think about I meditate in my bedroom. I have like a little area off to the side, and my cats will come in, and we have windows all along it. And so a lot of times where I'm in that kind of like spacious headspace, I'll turn around and I can see my cats, and they'll be laying in the sunlight and just sort of basking in it. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, they understand the Dharma very well. Just they don't have anywhere else to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go back to something that Ken had said about feeling supported and noticed in your mindfulness, because I think that's a huge issue of corporate culture today. Anyway, I can speak from that. Is that, and you spoke to it a little bit, but that tendency to adapt to what everyone else is doing. So I've definitely been in workplaces where I've felt supported for, just doing the 9-to-5 thing, not going beyond that, not pushing, saying no, and I just left. Well, I was laid off in a culture where there was a lot of fear. And there was a lot of pressure to not do that, which I get, and it's part of capitalism, but it can make it very difficult when you feel like you're threatened to lose your insurance, to lose your income, to lose the structure of your day. So that wasn't answering this question, but just wanted to comment.
I would also, yes.
I find it a lot easier to live that kind of life now that I'm retired, just saying. And also, I think back to, and you've experienced this, I'm sure, where you are raising kids, you are taking care of your parents, you are running the house, you are working, you are, and there's 5 things at any one moment that you should be doing. It's not that you've made your list.
Right.
And anything that you do means that 2 or 3 other things won't get done. And that's a different kind of a pressure. And I remember my students were under that pressure. It was very difficult for them to focus just on studenting because, and I think we have to be thinking about that too, like how, because I used to try, oh man, I'm going to be mindful, and because I'm not really a very well, people would disagree, but I don't feel like I'm a really competitive person. I mean, there's a lot of things I've passed up because, I value my family too much, but it's like, that is a part of our capitalist culture too, that people, and especially women, get sucked into this.
Right.
And the challenge is, and I don't know, I think it's hard to be mindful. At that moment with your kids, you're being really mindful because they're kids. You love them. You're with them. You're helping them. But then that means that those other 4 things don't get done. And there's nothing you can do about it unless you're really rich and you outsource it, all that living stuff to that.
Yeah. No, there are real pressures on people. I think the question is do you shoot that second arrow, right? Right. It's not that you don't have things to do. It's that maybe you can understand and not, while you're doing one thing, feel guilty about doing the 6 other things that need to be done because you're doing what you're doing. I have this, and I have this problem all the time. Almost every time I watch TV, right? I feel like, I really should be doing this other thing. I could be accomplishing something, but I'm like tired and I, whatever, want to watch a show with my family or whatever I want to do, right? So I have it all the time, but it's like I could just enjoy the program that I'm watching, right? A lot more if I wasn't sort of shooting that second arrow. And yeah. But there are plenty of people with long lists that are real, right? It's not that we make them up. Yeah.
Ericka, I was wondering if anybody or you have found that post-COVID, there is now that corporate initiative to get back in the office. And we've all realized we can be really productive and focused, but not chained to our desk, and yet that's not enough. And I see as more and more offices say, oh no, you need to be in now, because they want that toxic sangha, okay? Because that's what it is. And we have to figure out how we're gonna, the other piece that came up was a lot of the younger generations came up with the term quiet quitting. Like, I am doing just what I'm supposed to do. Just the minimum. That's the job. I'm not going beyond it. And it's a very interesting that we can learn from that as well.
Right. Is that part, can we admire that? Is that possible? Right? Maybe that, I also think of like, what's the name of the movie with the dude? Big Lebowski, right? Can we admire that guy? Right?
By the way, Ericka, did you know that Bernie Glassman, the founder of the Zen Peacemakers, wrote a book with, it was Jeff Daniels?
Yeah.
The Dude and the Zen Master, about the Big Lebowski. Jeff Bridges, sorry.
Jeff Bridges, absolutely, wherever he is, anytime.
Yes, it's Jeff Bridges, not Jeff Daniels, sorry, yes. But the Dude and the Zen Master, because the dude abides.
Abides, right? But that's usually the people that, we look up to have a very different mind. Who are we, setting up as someone to emulate, right? Usually it's not the dude. At least for me, it hasn't been. And I have a lot of judgment about that, right? And maybe that's something to consider.
Is it on? Okay.
It's on.
You just made me think. I in a past relationship, I was dating this guy, and he normal entry level job, rented apartment, and he told me once he said, if I die right now, I think I've achieved everything I want in my life, and I honestly was like, you're crazy. That's ridiculous, and we should break up. But now I'm like, maybe that's like pretty healthy. If he's just like, look, this is what I want, I'm okay with this, then maybe that's actually something I should try to emulate instead of this like striving for more. But also, I think I think like in the corporate culture, I am kind of lucky to be in, I think, a pretty healthy corporate culture, thankfully. But one thing that I try to do, and it's kind of, it shouldn't be like radical in corporate culture, but like unfortunately it kind of is like I take a lunch break with my team and I like make them go down to the cafeteria and eat lunch with me. Because I think on the one hand I think it's good, but on the other hand it's like that's like a baby step.
Yeah, but there's important steps. Yeah.
I think when you talk about Thich Nhat Hanh, he's written over 100 books. He's got sanghas all over the world. He's one of the greatest peacemakers ever. He does interviews, and when he does an interview, he says, it's going to be limited to 20 minutes. But when he does the interview, he doesn't stop. He waits until the interview is done. It can be done. I mean, he's living proof it can be done. We lost it somewhere along the way,
I was just going to say, when you're talking about mindfulness and reactivity, and not really having a goal. However, I think that what perpetuates for me is my mind kicking off with the delusion, keep going, you have to do this, you have to be better. And I think that mindfulness, being able to take the one seat and just stay with myself is helping me cultivate the pause so that I can not act as though my thoughts are me. Because it's like a nanosecond.
Yeah. It's a very small, but it's very powerful.
Very powerful, and really that is what meditating is about for me, is, staying in the space instead of like having these gaps that I have to fill with these thoughts that are just not real.
Right. I think that's such an important way that mindfulness can disrupt this productivity culture, right? That little space that lets us see.
Just thinking about how those lists can impinge on our being present, and that even taking the pause, that takes some discipline to disengage from the thoughts and the lists, and always let me do one more thing. And so I just think that's a big part of meditation, that you really, do it.
Wish I had my Fitbit on. Good work.
Just more reflecting on this. It's Thich Nhat Hanh, say when wash the dishes, garden. I think sometimes, well, it's easy for you to say. You're a master, and that's also at the end of the day, it's a kind of a to-do. It's something to do, and we're all struggling with it. We just can't do it. I know it's intellectually everybody, it makes sense, but I just can't stay in the present for whatever the reasons. So no, I'm just reflecting more. I think it comes down to gaining that deep insight and wisdom through our meditation. And that's one thing I'm very thankful that within this Zen tradition, compared to this self-improvement, mindfulness courses or meditation, is because we are getting that depth, that wisdom, because you gotta go there and change the outlook on life. What's the purpose of life? Without that, just be present, it's just another instruction, which it will be very hard to achieve. Because you're still you're anxious about achieving or not having achieved enough, and always caught in that trap.
Right. When it's set within the existing framework, it becomes a part of it, right? Whereas when you try to disrupt it, you can have a different approach, even if it's the same practice. Yeah.
What you said goes back to what Roshi was saying, Roshi Robert, about the connection of the precepts to our mindfulness practice. And he was talking about how mindfulness practice in the corporate setting doesn't exactly work because it's not connected to the other Buddhist principles and practices. And I think that's what you're talking about too. That's so important.
Right. However, at the same time, it can potentially make people curious, give people some skills, right? I definitely don't think it's a bad thing, but and it can be a way in, a gate, Dharma gates are boundless. And that can definitely be one, right? Yeah, definitely. I wanted to share a poem, just, as we're starting to wrap up. So this is a poem by Mary Oliver. It's a famous one. It's called The Summer Day. So, who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass. The one who is eating sugar out of my hand. who was moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who was gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is your plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Thank you. Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ericka. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody online. For those of us who are here, we've got kinship hour, which means snacky doodles. So. I came up with a term that I use with my clients called the cult of busy. And what it is it's a manipulation. Hey, Eric, I need you to do, I'm too busy. No, you're not.